How is the bounty of the war with the Midianites to be divided up? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Numbers on Walking Through the Bible. If you have a Bible with you, turn to Numbers 31. We're going to be reading from verses 25 to 41. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Numbers 31, beginning of verse 25. Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Count up the plunder that was taken of man and beast, you and Eleazar the priest and the chief fathers of the congregation, and divide the plunder into two parts, between those who took part in the war, who went out to battle, and all the congregation. And levy a tribute for the Lord of the men of war who went out to battle, one of every 500 of the persons, the cattle, the donkeys, and the sheep. Take it from their half, and give it to Eleazar the priest as a heave offering to the Lord. And from the children of Israel's half you shall take one of every 50, drawn from the persons, the cattle, the donkey, and the sheep, from all the livestock, and give them to the Levites, who keep charge of the tabernacle of the Lord. So Moses and Eleazar the priest did as the Lord commanded. The booty remaining from the plunder, which the men of war had taken, was 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, and 32,000 persons in all, of women who had not known a man intimately. And the half, the portion of those who had gone out to war, was in number 337,500 sheep, and the Lord's tribute of the sheep was 675. The cattle were 36,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 72. The donkeys were 30,500, of which the Lord's tribute was 61. The persons were 16,000, of which the Lord's tribute was 32 persons. So Moses gave the tribute, which was the Lord's, the heave offering to Eleazar the priest, as the Lord commanded Moses. In this chapter, we've been dealing with God's vengeance enacted upon Midian. We noted that God was not condoning or commanding genocide here, because there was a valid reason that God commanded Israel to attack Midian. It had nothing to do with ethnicity or race and everything to do with sin. The sin that the Midianites had committed was luring Israel away to commit harlotry with their women and to bow down to their gods. Such was an abomination to God and deserved to be punished. Now, people who do not want to believe in the Bible sometimes cite passages like these as one of their reasons why. But instead of attacking the righteousness of God to punish evildoers, stories like this should cause people to repent of sin and turn to God, so that things like what is told here doesn't happen to us for eternity. But for those who do not want to heed the warnings now, sadly they'll have plenty of time to contemplate their sinfulness and lack of obedience when being punished in hell. Now that the war was over, and those responsible were dealt with, the bounty from the war was to be divided. From the sheer numbers of what was taken, we can know that this wasn't a small war, even though Midian wasn't utterly destroyed. Yet Israel defeated Midian with only 12,000 men, showing Israel that when God was on their side, there was no battle that they would lose. Now you might assume that the bounty would be divided evenly by tribe, or perhaps proportionally based on the recent census, but that is not how God was choosing to divide it. Half of the bounty would be given to those who fought in the war, showing us the principle again that the worker is worthy of his wages. These 12,000 put their lives at risk by going to battle. Therefore, they should receive half of the spoils of war. The other half would be divided by the congregation, most likely proportional based on their tribe size. In total, the bounty was 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, and 32,000 virgin women. However, because the Lord was the ultimate reason for their victory, both the men of war and the congregation as a whole were to offer a portion of the bounty to the Lord as thanksgiving. This would be similar to the tithes that we discussed in Numbers 18, although this wasn't a tithe, because a tithe was 10%, while what was required here was much less. For the men of war, only 1 in 500 was required from the bounty they received to be offered to the Lord. Since the men of war received 337,500 sheep, 36,000 cattle, 30,500 donkeys, and 16,000 persons. The portion that was the Lord's was 675 sheep, 72 cattle, 61 donkeys, and 32 persons. This was to be given to Eleazar the high priest, presumably to be used by the priestly family, as was commanded under the law. The donkeys were unclean under the law, so they were not allowed to be eaten or sacrificed, but they could be used as beasts of burden or sold to others who would use them for this purpose. The persons that were received could be used in the priest's household as servants, but because they had been an idolater, these women could not be married to the priests according to Leviticus 21. What would the Lord's portion of the bounty of the congregation be used for? We'll find out, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Numbers chapter 31, verses 42 to 54, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.